And this investigation began in October of last year, and it involved the TDA. This is a very violent Venezuelan gang. This gang originated out of the prisons in Venezuela. It's recognized in the United States as an organized, not only an organized gang, but they're also recognized as an organized terrorist organization. Now, you watch the national news and you think, oh, that's something that happens someplace else. But I can tell you that this violent gang was alive and well in Central Florida. And I want to show you, this is Alexis Benavides, and I'm going to introduce him to you in a minute. This is his gun. I want to tell you that these folks came across the border illegally. I want to give you details. This started with 32 cases that we worked, and there were 4 cases worked by other agencies. And it was with them stealing high-end liquor. But it started out something as minor as grabbing beer at convenience stores, and it elevated to robbery. And then not only was there a robbery here, but we worked with Osceola County because during the process of this in Osceola County, they committed robbery with a firearm. It's a violent group. So how did we come into contact with these folks? Through Public's Organized Retail Crime Investigation Unit, who noticed a trend of people stealing high-end liquor from them. And during the process of us investigating this, we determined that they were also stealing from Sam's and Walmart, the same trend. We also learned that other agencies had made 4 arrests along the way. And I really want to underscore and highlight the Lakeland Police Department, because when they went to Sam's in the city of Lakeland to steal, they actually robbed the clerk, injuring her hand. They had loaded this high-end liquor into a basket and were trying to leave with it. She tried to stop them. They literally ran into her, injured her hand, and fled. The Lakeland Police Department immediately started an investigation, learned when they fled, they damaged their vehicle, which ended up in a crash, and then they scattered like rats on a sinking ship. They ultimately got an Uber and fled. Lakeland Police Department had suspects, and they were onto this case. They worked hand in glove with us. We explained to them there was a long-term investigation that we were doing as well, and they wanted to make sure that not only did they have a successful arrest, but that they worked with us so that we could wrap up this entire organization. But I want to stop just a minute. It's not just the Lakeland Police Department and the Sheriff's Office. It's DHS. They were involved in this investigation. The Orange and Osceola Sheriff's Office was involved in this investigation. Florida Department of Law Enforcement was involved in this investigation. The U.S. Marshals Task Force was involved in this investigation. ICE put holes on all of these folks, and I'm going to talk in detail about that in just a few minutes. The statewide prosecutor is working with us, and our detectives are currently working with them because we're seeking to file not only organized retail theft charges, not only robbery charges, we're seeking also to file racketeering charges, which is a 30-year minimum mandatory. We couldn't do that without the cooperation of first our state attorney's office and ultimately our Florida statewide prosecutors, who works under James Uthmeyer, our Attorney General. So when you look at this investigation and you look at all these investigations, no one agency does this. So I want to underscore and recognize each of them. Osceola, Orange, when we were picking up 3 of the 5, 2 were already in custody in Osceola County, by the way, for a robbery. They sent teams of people out to help us with surveillance and with entry to make sure that we had sufficient help to do this appropriately, because these folks are violent and they're dangerous. But once again, I want to introduce you to the different individuals that you see here. And I'll start with Samuel Charlie. He's 25. He is a documented member of this gang task force, of this gang. We have designated him as a terrorist federally. He has a criminal history in this country. We don't know about his criminal history in Venezuela. He came here through El Paso in 2023, walked into the border. It was wide open. It was not difficult. He was one of the leaders in these theft operations. He's unemployed, and that's a common theme you'll hear throughout the day. None of these people are working in the United States, but they're living high. So what does that tell you? They're committing crime. They came here illegally through the Biden open border, all but, I believe, one. They're robbing and stealing from those of us in the United States who behave. And at the end of the day, we didn't have to search far for him, because he was already in the Osceola County Jail, charged with a robbery that occurred during the period of time we were investigating this organized retail theft group. Then there was Ramon Luna. He's 26. He is an associate. So why do we call him an associate? Because he has not been certified yet, but he's running with these gang members. When we finish our investigations and we finish working with the feds, we anticipate that all of these folks will be documented as gang members. Only 2 are, but he's an associate of theirs now. Interestingly enough, even though they claim not to have known each other, guess when he came through the same month, September 2023, in El Paso, illegally. And at the end of the day, you're going to see pictures at the end of them partying. They've got time to steal, they've got time to rob, they've got time to party in this country, all while they're here illegally, all while they were allowed to just walk into this country. Then there's Aldemaro Mendoza. He's 26. He is also an associate. Now, he's the exception. He came in 2016 as a Detroit Tiger minor league prospect. He didn't make it. He didn't even make it to the minor leagues, but he was a prospect when he was brought here. And guess what? He failed to deport. So while he had a legal status in 2016, he failed to deport. Now listen, 2016 to 2025, okay, I'm not real good at math, but that's about 9 years, right? The federal government has him in deportation procedures, but in 9 years, they can't get him out of here? Come on, man. If you don't think the federal immigration system is messed up, here's your sign. All the while, he wasn't hard to find because he was in the Osceola jail for robbery. That's right. Charlie and Mendoza together robbed a person at gunpoint in Osceola County, neither of which should have been here. Then there's Darwin's Leon. He's 28. He's also an associate. He crossed in December of 2021 at El Paso. There was a warrant for removal for him. But despite that warrant for removal, he was here wandering around, committing robberies, committing organized theft, partying. We also know that he was in Aurora, Colorado at the time of the takeover of the apartments. We cannot, and I underscore, we cannot tie him directly to the TDA that was doing the takeover, but he was there during that time period, and he was an associate, and he's running with them. He's also showed up in other areas of the country. So is he employed? Of course, none of them are employed, because why bother working when you can come here illegally and just steal from those of us in this country? Then there's Alexis Benavides, who's 27. He's a documented TDA member. He's also, I might highlight, currently a suspect in a murder in New Mexico. But he's also been to Illinois. You know that state that thinks you ought to protect illegal immigrants? Maybe there are other suspected murderers in Illinois they want to protect. I mean, just thinking out loud. He's supposed to be higher up in the organization. And when I asked, what does higher up mean? They just said, well, I said, is he a leader? Is he a boss? No, he's just well respected and higher up in the organization. So when did he come across? August 2023 at El Paso once again. So why he's got a criminal history in Illinois, we don't know what their criminal histories are out of the country, but he's pending a federal warrant for removal. So at the end of this operation, we have these 5 people who are in this country illegally. And not only are they in this country illegally, they're not working, they're not pretending to work, but they're stealing. One of my detectives, and by the way, my detectives are the very best, and this is just one more example of their brilliant work and their relationships with other federal, state, and local law enforcement and prosecuting groups, said they continued as the investigation went on and we tried to tie them together. They continued to become more violent and more violent and more violent. Now we know there should be one map here that shows the state of Florida and the different areas. So regardless, we don't know what all they did in Illinois. We don't know what all they did for sure in New Mexico. But what we do know is the whole time they're here, they're committing crime. And that is just one more example of that. So I want to share something with you. I want to share, you know, Ramon Luna. You see some of them are smiling here. But I want to focus another picture of Ramon Luna. You see, it's not such a happy time. Life as he knew it is over. Is he crying because he can't steal from Americans anymore? Is he crying because he can't rob people in the middle of the night anymore? Is he crying because he can't rip off high-end liquor? This is the end of the road for him and his companions. I hope he has his traveling clothes on, because we want to charge them with racketeering and send them to state prison for a very long time and then deport them. Now, some would say, why don't you just deport them and not spend any more taxpayers' money on them? Well, first off, if you deport them, there's no guarantee that they won't try to find their way back. And there's no guarantee that we won't be dealing with them again in murder, robbery, or theft, just as they make their way here. So he's going to be locked up for a long time. We know that 4 of the 5 of these folks came across during the Biden era of totally open borders. You've heard me stand here before and say we don't have a broken immigration policy or a border policy. We have one that's non-existent. This is the kind of people that are coming across. At one point in time, this rascal got on his hands and knees after we arrested him, and he was begging. He's not so bad. Now look, here's the guns they like to carry as they torment people in the street. But he's not such a big bad guy when he's locked up. Maybe he's having visions of El Salvador prisons at some point in time in his future. We know that sometimes 2 of them, sometimes 4 of them, sometimes all 5 of them did these grabs at the same time as they would enter and rob and steal. We know 2 of them, as I said, robbed at gunpoint. But they're not smiling anymore, you see? They're crying. They were smiling during the Trump era. I mean, during the Biden era. They were smiling when they came across. I think we have a picture, another picture of that too, of some of their smiling and their partying. You see, they came across illegally. They were stealing. They were partying. They weren't working. They weren't adding anything to this country. And then you see how cool they are as they sent their pictures back to their buddies in Venezuela and how they bragged about being here. And at the end of the day, they thought it was real cool. We're bad dudes. And they're playing people for a fool. I like to think about, who is it, Van Hollen, that just went to visit this illegal in prison, okay? Well, let me tell you something, Senator Van Hollen. You come here to visit these guys, you'll be talking to them through a glass. There won't be any handshaking. There won't be any politicking. These are criminals, and they're dangerous. And when are we going to figure it out as a nation? These people don't belong here. I'm thankful that President Trump said enough is enough. I'm thankful, when he came here, all of those smiles turned to cries. They know it's coming. We were out arresting people. Right now, I think today I have about 70 or 72 on ICE holes in the county jail. Make no mistake about it. You come here illegally, we bump into you, we're going to enforce the law. We're going to notify ICE. We also, because of the leadership of Governor Ron DeSantis and our legislature with current legislation where they provided enhancements, we have enhanced all the levels of those we have charged. So thank you, Governor DeSantis. Thank you, Florida legislature. Ben Albritton, our president of the Senate. Daniel Perez, our Speaker of the House. Thank you all for giving us the tools to keep the people of Florida safe. So my last editorial comment. For those of you across the nation that think this is okay, why don't you find you some violent gang members that we have also designated as terrorists and take them into your home. Let them sleep in the bed next to your children. Let them drive your car, illegally, by the way. Let them live with you, because when you ignore these people and you think it's okay for them to be in this country, they are tormenting and terrorizing and stealing and robbing and murdering people. By the way, you notice the TDA didn't take over any apartment complexes in Polk County, because we'd have gone there and wore their butt out the second they showed up and locked them up before quick. So wake up, those of you who are wanting to protect this kind of criminal, and shame on you. I am so proud of our state attorney, Brian Haas. I am so proud of our Florida Attorney General and his statewide prosecutors, James Uthmayer. Together, we're working with all of our partners to get these folks locked up in jail and subsequently prison and subsequently moved out of this country. I am frustrated with a complex federal system that seems to pay more attention to illegal aliens in this country than they do the safety and the security of those that are here legally and the U.S. citizens. Are there any questions?
On the three who were not currently in jail, who were not in Osceola jail, were they arrested like at a home? Was it in the act of one of these crimes?
No, they were arrested pursuant to robbery warrants that we obtained, our organized retail crime team, and Osceola, Orange, FDLE task force. They were in Osceola County. They weren't residing in Polk County. They went over there, staked them out, identified them, and took them into custody.
How long they were in the business of stealing?
Well, I believe they were in the business of stealing from the moment they stole their way into the United States of America. There's never been any evidence that they've lawfully worked. So they came here and started stealing and started robbing, and we suspect murder on this one. And we don't know what we don't know yet, but all of this investigation on these guys is still underway.
Let me ask, how long have they been, are you aware that they've been here in Florida committing criminal acts?
We know we started the investigation with Public's organized retail crime team. When they brought it to our attention, they saw a pattern in the Public stores across the state. So I'm telling you right now, they came across this country, they've never worked, so they have more than likely been stealing from the moment they stole their way into this country.
So more charges are expected?
Oh yes, absolutely more charges are expected. We are working hand in glove with a statewide prosecutor who is simply the very best. These guys are into it up to their eyeballs, and we're going to go ahead and finish sinking them in the criminal justice system when we complete this investigation.
Sheriff, there's been a national conversation about due process. You said that you want to see them in state prison, which implies a due process. How important is that to you, even when people are here illegally?
It's amazing to me that somebody can steal their way into the United States of America and receive due process. But due process, as we think of it in the criminal justice system, is not the same as due process in the immigration system. Due process in the immigration system means being taken in front of a federal deportation judge or federal judge that deals with immigration issues. So it's not the same complexity. But they're backed up years and years. I mean, this one person has been here since 2016. Now, he started here legally, but he overstayed his visa. We've got the federal system. That's where you need to dig in and say, hey, think about this. As violent and dangerous as these guys are, their associates are gang members. Only 2 of them had removal warrants. 1 of them was in the process. 2 of them had nothing yet. And they're here illegally. The federal system is just all tangled up in its underwear. And they can't get these people out of here in a year or 2. It's decades. So we need to jump up the immigration judges. We need to jump up the infrastructure if we're serious about getting those out of this country here that are illegally, especially those that are committing violent crime or committing crime. And there's not 10,000, 20,000, there's millions. According to what we're told, there's at least 1.4 million with a deportation warrant at the federal level. 1.4 million. That's what we know about. Some of these violent gang members, known as a terrorist organization, didn't even have that going for them yet. Now, ICE has got a hold on all of them. But I work with the ICE people on the ground. They are working so very hard. But you know, when you're handcuffed and hogtied at the ankles, it's difficult to do what you need to do to keep the people safe. I've said this before, and I'll say it one more time. President Trump's got to get that big black pen and an executive order and start signing and saying, hey, y'all are not listening to what I'm saying. We're going to get these folks out of here quick. And if it takes this, or it takes reallocation of funds, or whatever it takes, if we've got 100 deportation judges, we need 1,000. If we've got space to keep 1,000 in the state of Florida, which we don't, have 1,000 extra beds, but we need capacity, and we need a system that picks the pace up. It can't get better by itself, and if you do the same old thing with the same amount of resources, the same way, you're going to continue to get the same results. And the same results is that the federal system fails, and it doesn't fail because of the DHS, ICE workers, Border Patrol on the ground. It fails because of the policy in place.
Just to clarify, so people understand the process of how this works, so they, obviously, with the combination of their ICE detainers and now elevated charges, they're not getting out until they're prosecuted here, provided they're convicted, they'll serve their sentence here, then be deported.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
And so you have an ICE agent working here in Polk County over at the jail?
Yes, there is an ICE agent that is embedded at the Polk County Jail right now. That gentleman is working miracles. He is able to help us confirm that people are here illegally, that are arrested, and he is expediting the ICE process. There's just not enough of them. I'm telling you, we deal with them every day. As you know, I am currently the chair of the Florida Immigration Council, and I work with them, and the supervisors and the agencies are working wide open. We've got to have policy change to make an appreciable difference. We got the same old clunky system that's ineffective at best and horribly broken in reality. And to try to move it along, it is just slow and onerous. Okay?
How long has that ICE agent been here?
About 3 weeks, maybe.
Don't know if you have this number, but we last saw you maybe 2 months ago when you first talked about speeding everything up with the ICE process. I know you said you have about 70 to 72 ICE holds now. Do you remember how many there were back when you first had that press conference?
I can tell you what we've always done. And I say always, I'm talking through this Trump administration, the Biden administration, the last Trump administration, the Obama administration. We've always, every 24 hours, given the information to ICE. ICE runs them through their system, and they said, hey, hold this one, or we don't want them. The problem is, most of those that were arrested that weren't lodged in jail for a long period of time got out on bond before we got any feedback. And legally, we have to release them. During the Biden administration, the numbers of people they even tried to hold diminished significantly. That has changed, that's turned around. But still, there's a capacity issue. We've got a governor and a infrastructure at the state where we've gone to the federal government and said, hey, we'll put up temporary housing, 1,000 beds, 10,000 beds. We are training, state troopers are already trained. We're in line to be trained by ICE to be field task force officers. We're doing everything under great leadership from our legislature and Governor DeSantis to spool up and help the federal government. The feds are helping and working hard on the local level. They don't have the policy change that allows this to speed up. And the word's got to get to the president. Mr. President, we watch the news, we see what you say, what you're trying to do. You need to get someone to dig down and find out that my experience, your DHS people are trying hard, but quite frankly, I think you're listening to a bunch of bureaucratic lawyers as opposed to changing policy. You're listening to lawyers, and lawyers will tell you the least risk occurs when you do nothing. But the reality is there's not much risk at all with doing what's right. There can be loud mouths with a big trumpet, but doing what's right doesn't always occur in silence. Just do what's right. Just give the ICE people, the DHS, the Border Patrol, the authority. Change the rules, the housing rules, so the state of Florida and the other states and the local law enforcement, those that run local jails, can help. If it's good enough, if the Florida state rules are good enough, Florida jail model rules are good enough to hold U.S. citizens accused of a crime, they certainly ought to be good enough to hold illegal criminals in this country accused of crimes so that we can help more. But till the president gets that big pen out on an executive order and mandates it, and then looks at his watch, compares it with a 30-day calendar and says, well, y'all got about 29 days and 12 hours and 45 minutes to get this fixed. If you like working here, nothing's going to change. Because by the time he gives the order up here and it drizzles through the current rules and it goes to these bureaucratic lawyers who are paid whether they work or not, on the ground, the ICE folks, the Border Patrol folks, the local folks struggle. So, Mr. President, listen to what I'm saying. I'll get you what you need. I'll help you accomplish the mission that the voters told you. Get these illegal people that are starting, as you said, with the worst first out of this country. That's what we're doing. But 5 at a time ain't going to get us there when there's hundreds of thousands that are committing crime and there's 1.4 million deportation warrants. Mr. President, I know what I'm talking about. We can help you out, but you got to help us out first.
Sure. Do you mind, I don't know if you mind talking a little bit about what happened at FSU?
Yeah, are we finished with this? Okay. What do you want to know? I mean,
What's your takeaway from what happened as a member of the Stoneman Douglas?
yeah. I'm also a commissioner on the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission that investigated that horrible shooting of those beautiful children and staff members. And I can tell you the systems and the processes have greatly improved in the state of Florida because of, once again, the legislature and then our governor, currently our senator, our U.S. senator, they acted very quickly. To have one person injured or killed with an active shooter is too much. But look how quickly the intervention came and the remarkable work by the law enforcement officers in Tallahassee. My heart breaks for anyone who lost their life or were injured or emotionally scarred from this. There's always going to be evil among us, but there are good people doing good things, and there are heroes among us that will run in. And we're teaching and coaching. This is the new normal. There's going to be evil people that want to hurt people, and now they have social media And if you can't be famous, you can always be infamous. And someone said, well, you know, they got mental health problems. I've heard that over, and they got mental health problems. Well, of course they do. Normal people don't shoot people. And certainly normal people don't grab guns and actively go on a rampage. They all have issues. They all have a hitch in their giddy up. None of their brain cells are working right to do that. But the reality of it is, as horrible as it was yesterday, I look at the bright side and say, how much worse could it have been, except for those wonderful men and women that raced in to protect. Then the thing that I think just crushes everyone's soul is the Leon County deputy who for 18 years has stood in the gap between good and evil and done what was right, and was currently a school resource officer, as I'm told, the one that will stand in the gap and run into the danger to protect children. It was a child that she apparently adopted at some point in time that did this. It crushes you for anyone to do it, but I think it's a clear illustration that it doesn't make any difference. No one is above the possibility that someone in your family can do something like this. The question always is, what did we know and when did we know it? But I can tell you that no one works for 18 years in law enforcement successfully without being horribly mortified by what happened.
Can you speak a little bit to preparedness, what the sheriff's office here does with local universities and how important that is?
Back in the day, before Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, we started a Sentinel program here. In fact, my Sentinel program is almost word for word the State Guardian program. So we started a Sentinel program, and we started at Southeastern University. They were the only ones who would accept this. I met with not the current president of Polk State College, but the former president. I met with a former person that was the superintendent of the public schools, not the current ones. And I met with the SEU, Southeastern president. He said, I think it's great, I think it's visionary, I want to do it. The other two looked at me like I just landed from Mars. Today they don't have to call me a prophet. But that's when it started. We were arguably the first law enforcement agency in the nation. I created an entire division. You have patrol division, investigative divisions. I created an entire division of safe schools. So we now have this robust, very large safe school division. We have a lot of infrastructure in place, and as I've said over and over, having guns on campus is not the first solution, but it's the last best solution to protect people. So there's layers and layers and layers and layers of security systems that we don't talk about, and processes that we don't talk about publicly, but we want children of every age up through college to go to school, to feel comfortable, to feel safe, for it to be a great social environment. We don't want it to feel like they're going to prison every day, and they don't feel that way. But we have a lot of security systems in place. Does that mean it can't happen here? No, it does not. But I can tell you we have reduced the probabilities because we are seeing and taking action on things that we know before they manifest into a real problem. So the number one thing for everybody, if you see something or hear something or feel something, say something. Because almost without exception, when we go back and we look at these active shooters, there has been signs in the past, and they ignored them. or they didn't think they were real, or they would go away, or it was just childish talk, almost without exception. One of the biggest security measures we have, beside guns on campus by very well-trained people now, is if somebody says they've got a gun, they're going to shoot, they're going to stab, they got a knife, if they say it, we take it for the absolute truth until we do a complete and thorough investigation and determine, like it is 99 9/10 of the time, childhood chatter, angry chatter by kids. We deal with the right level of intervention, but you don't know you take everyone serious. I can stand here and tell you clearly and unequivocally, if you look this nation over, there's more school districts and more police agencies that aren't prepared for the next shooter than are prepared for the next shooter. But the response at FSU, from everything I've seen and what I know, was remarkable. The notice to the students, the lockdowns, the police response. They did a remarkable job. It crushes me that anyone was hurt or killed, but how many did they save? We'll never be able to measure that.
And then go quickly, do you think that the Stoneman Douglas Safety Commission will be reviewing this incident?
If our job is to look not only at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, but to look statewide. So I would not be surprised at all if our chair, Sheriff Gualteri, who, by the way, has done an awesome job as our chair, that doesn't come before us to see. And I think, once again, I've only seen the news reports like you have. It's too soon, it's too new. There'll be after action reports, but at least initially, what I saw was impressive.
Just going off of the discussion about guns on campus, I know there's been discussion about potentially allowing concealed carry on campus. I know people feel one way or the other about it. Is that something in this situation that you think maybe could have been a positive if that was allowed, or do you think the discussion should continue to happen?
Well, you know, you can have the argument on both sides of the issue. Quite frankly, I am not sure that 18 to 22-year-old boys in a frat house on a Friday night need guns. But I can tell you unequivocally, if you had the right person armed with a gun at that moment in time there, and they could have stopped it before it got to where it was. But look, folks, I must tell you that any loss of life, any injury is too much. But that was really compartmentalized compared to what it could have been. It appears from at least the initial reports, and I've tried to search up everything that I could see, that under the circumstances that they were presented, their response was remarkable. Okay? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a great Easter weekend. Bye-bye.